Hi, I'm Paul Newman. You want to know why I'm here? I feel the need for speed.
For the world's fastest open-wheeled racing drivers, there is but one prize, the PPG Cup. To win it, a driver must conquer the traffic of the short ovals, the bumps of the street circuits, the high-speed sweeps of the super speedways, and the tree-lined avenues of the natural road courses. 17 races in all on 3 continents, nearly 4,000 miles of high-speed racing. And to the winner go the spoils. Last year, Jimmy Vasser reigned as PPG Kart World Series champion, winning the Cup and the $1 million bonus that goes with it. Who will be champion this year? Our story begins today. It is a hot and windy day at Homestead Motorsports Complex in Homestead, Florida. 2 factors that may come into play in the opening round of the PPG Kart World Series for 1997. Welcome as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. It's been nearly 7 months of off-season work, countless man-hours devoted to creating the 28 fastest open-wheeled racing cars in the world. And now they are on the starting grid, just moments from the command to start engines for the opening round of the PPG Kart World Series. Hello everybody, I'm Bob Barsha. It's my privilege to be your host for coverage of the PPG Kart World Series in 1997. Think of the series as a book with 17 chapters, and the opening chapter is already being written on this weekend near Miami, Florida. The chief author thus far has been last year's rookie sensation, Alex Zanardi, who put his car on pole for the 5th straight time. That ties the series record. He will start from the front row for a record-breaking 9th straight race, and all eyes will be on him as this race unfolds. It's a very difficult racetrack. We have lots of changes in driver-car affiliations, chassis, engines, tires, much to tell you about as this race unfolds, and indeed throughout the entire season. Now let's get things started by going down to meet one of our 2 pit reporters for today's race. Here's Jack Arute.
And Bob, you talk about the chapters and the questions. Well, page 1 of chapter 1 was written by the championship team, but not by Jimmy Vasser, the champion, but by his compatriot at the keyboard, Alex Zanardi. Zanardi, as you said, 9 times on the front row. He's brought Team Ganassi back to the front row for another time. But the question is, can Team Ganassi repeat? They'll tell you in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in the NHL, in the NBA, to come back and two-peat, it's extremely difficult. Chip Ganassi stays with the same package as he had last year, worked hard to keep all the people on board. Thus far, this team has 1 championship point, and that's 1 more than anybody else. For our other guy covering pit road and for more questions, let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Jack, over the years, we've come to expect nothing but dominance from the Penske racing team in this sport, but certainly last year it was a struggle for them. For the first time in a decade, they went without a victory. Al Unser Jr. managed to stay in the championship hunt. They come into 97 with an improved chassis, and certainly they're excited about improvements and gains made by Mercedes-Benz in the power plant department. But nonetheless, to start this race today, Jr. starts outside row 5 in the 10th spot. His teammate Paul Tracy starts further back outside row 8 in spot number 16. Clearly, they've got a ways to go and work to do, but there's high expectations. Now, the 4th member of our broadcast team today, down toward turn 1. Let's check in with Danny Sullivan.
Well, I'm standing here in front of 28 very nervous drivers. They're a top 900 horsepower each. Now, there's guys out there who've won championships, who've won races, and they want to do that again. There's also guys out here who've never won their first race. They want to do that here today. And then there are the rookies. They're just trying to make a good impression, stay out of trouble, and they'd like to win that first race, and that's going to be difficult. But with all of that said, they got a double dose of adrenaline going. My adrenaline's going. I got to make it up to the booth. So without any more talking, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jack Arute. Thank you.
Danny, another story that unfolded yesterday during qualifying is Gil DeFerrin driving for Walker Racing, a great first lap. And then as he went across the start-finish line, the engine lost its fuel pressure, the car began to flutter, and into turn 1, crashes real hard. Took away the gearbox, the side pod. They had to trash the car. It is repairable, but not in time. He starts in the 3rd position in his backup car. Watch for Walker and company, Gary.
Another story, Jack. Every day during the practice and the qualifying, high wind gusts, better than 30 miles per hour. It's impacted every driver. Consider new aerodynamics this year, less downforce, and you got 28 cars out there creating their own turbulence. It could be chaotic on the opening lap. All the drivers have been warned. All of them are concerned. Bob?
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Engines have been fired, as Danny Sullivan mentioned. 900 strong, and we are preparing for the field to roll out. Right now, let's take this opportunity to review the starting grid. On the pole from Italy, Alex Zanardi, 5th consecutive pole for the 1996 Rookie of the Year. He'll start alongside Big Mo Gugelmin, consistently fast in preseason testing. That matches his best qualifying position ever. On row 2, Gilles de Ferran. After that huge crash, he will start the backup car, but he says he's ready to go. Next to him, Greg Moore, the dashing young Canadian, using last year's Reynard chassis, a 96 model. Row 3 will be Mark Blundell, the Englishman starting his second full season in the Indy cars. Next to him, the reigning series champion, who took his first career win here 1 year ago. That, of course, is Jimmy Vasser. On row 4, Parker Johnstone, now driving for the team that won the 95 championship with Jacques Villeneuve, Team Green. Alongside Raoul Boesel, brought last year's colors to the Patrick team in a two-car effort for 97. On row number 5, Patrick Carpentier, last year's Toyota Atlantic champion, makes the big step up to the PPG Kart Series. Next to him, Al Unser Jr., coming off his first winless season since 1997. You have to know that won't last long. On row 6, Scott Pruitt, his first time ever in a two-car team, partnering Boesel. Next to him will be Bobby Rahal in a new color scheme for the only 3-time series champion in the field. On row 7, Dario Franchitti, the young Scotsman who comes to kart from International Touring Cars. Next to him will be Michael Andretti, last year's leading winner with 5 victories. He debuts that new American-made Swift chassis today. On row number 8, Andretti's teammate Christian Fittipaldi in another Swift. Next to him, Paul Tracy, who led 83 laps, absolutely dominated this race last year before the transmission failed. On row 9, Max Pappas, his first kart race on an oval. Mad Max, always a crowd favorite. Next to him will be Brian Herta, who finished 6th or higher in the last 7 races of 96 and had a very near miss at Laguna Seca in the season finale. On row 10, Walter Salas, moving up from Indy Lights to the big series. Next to him will be Andre Rivero. All 3 of the Brazilian's career wins have come on ovals. We'll watch him today as well. On row 11, Richie Hearn in his 4th start in the kart series. Next to him will be Adrian Fernandez, who won his first race last year on the street circuit at Toronto, Canada. On row number 12, Michel Jourdain Jr. from Mexico moves over to the Peyton Coyne team. Next to him will be P.J. Jones. Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team has switched to Reynard chassis for 97. On row 13, Juan Fangio II, one of the great names in racing. He will start alongside Hiro Matsushita, Japanese driver also using Toyota power this year. And on our final row, row 14, Dennis Vitolo, making his first PPG kart start since the Long Beach race a year ago. Next to him will be Roberto Moreno of Brazil, who must start last in the field after a crash in practice yesterday. The team could not get that car fixed in order to take the race here today. As the field warms chassis, engines, and tires on the racetrack, Danny Sullivan now joins me here in the booth. Danny, final thoughts before this first green flag of the year?
Well, I think we've really got to wait and see what they got to manage their time today. This is going to be very critical. What they do in the early stages, stay out of trouble, and hopefully be there at the end, adjust that car and get it tuned in for the final run at the flag.
You can almost hear those radios crackling as crew chiefs tell their drivers, calm down, take it easy. Chip Ganassi watches as his man Jimmy Vasser is on the backstretch. Let's take a look at the sheer numbers of today's race. We'll begin with chassis. 18 Reynards, 2 Penske's, of course, for Paul Tracy and Al Unser Jr., 6 Lolas, and 2 Swifts for Christian Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti.
We've got 11 Ford engines, 6 Honda, 7 Mercedes, and 4 Toyotas.
And it's remarkable that those engines are down 5 inches of turbocharger boost, but the engineers say they're just as powerful as they ever were. On the tire question, 15 Firestone tires, outnumbering Goodyear. Firestone won more races last year. I suppose it's natural more people would want to be on the Stones. Now let's summarize our top stories we'll be watching as the race unfolds. Can the Penske team come back and win? Is the Ganassi team going to stay strong after the success of last year? And of course, who has the magic package? Unofficially, 14 different chassis, tire, and engine combinations are represented in this 28-car field. The signal, 1 lap to go from the flag stand. Closer look at the race itself. The oval 1.517 miles, down slightly because of a reconfiguration of the corners of the track, Danny.
Well, we do. They've widthened the corners 24 feet to give it a better arc through there. That's going to help those guys with less downforce with those smaller rear wings.
148 laps of racing scheduled. As Al Unser Jr. said yesterday in qualifying, you want a good race car under you for that 50-lap run to the first fuel window. Now the pace begins to build as Alex Zanardi leads the field around. The crowd comes to its feet. Off the corner they come. Gugelmin on the left and on the right. Last year's Rookie of the Year, Alex Zanardi. We face the green flag and we are underway with the first event of 1997. Zanardi with the advantage. Gugelmin slots into second as they take turn 1 for the first time. And look at Zanardi build that lead. Gildeferin goes underneath Gugelmin for second.
And look at that. Vassar's going to get him too. No, Gugelmin cuts him off. He was going to take advantage of that move going into 3.
As they flash across the start-finish line, Alex Zanardi has the lead. He ride with his teammate Jimmy Vasser. Zanardi has now led at least 1 lap in the last 9 races as he continues to take the PPG Kart World Series by storm.
Right at the back of your picture there in that red and white car right behind Vasser was Al Unser Jr.
Down the back stretch into turn 3. The short chute almost eliminated by the reconfiguration of these corners, and then this stiff wind gusting, as Jack Arute mentioned, 25 to 30 miles an hour, catches the drivers just as they come off turn 4. There is Al Unser Jr. Let's learn more on his situation from Gary Gerald.
Bob, when we were in our pre-race show over on ESPN2, as we were going down through the grid, we had video showing Rick Reineman and the crew for Al Unser Jr. dramatically working at the rear of the car, changing the suspension. I asked him what was the story there. He said, well, our driver wanted a last-minute change. Rather unusual. They accommodated him, and right now he's jumped from 10th to 5th. It looks like it's paying off big time.
I'll tell you what, Bob, little Al is one of the best racers out there, but he's always tweaking, trying to find that car. If it doesn't work, he'll change it at the first stop. If it does work and he wants a little bit more, he'll change it at the first stop. He's looking down the road. He's not concerned about what's going on right now. He wants to be there racing at the end.
There's Parker Johnstone switching over to the Team Green operation for 1997. Johnstone says he's never had a better situation as a racing driver, and that goes back a long time. See Al Unser Jr., the pack still led by Alex Zanardi, now working lap number 5. Jack Arute.
And Bob, we have not seen everything that Alex Zanardi has on board yet. Crew chief, actually Chip Ganassi, has been radioing to Alex not to use all of it. He's got it down in fuel position number 6. After every 2 laps or so, he boosts up 1 click each and every lap. Now the reason for that is the fuel capacity has been reduced from 40 gallons to 35 gallons of methanol. The team feels that if they just conserve fuel in the first 10 or 15 laps, they'll be able to go back up and run better and make it possibly a 2-stop race. Meanwhile, as we watch Michael Andretti, he's on a tear.
No question about it, Jack. Michael Andretti has come from 14th to 7th in just 5 laps. He's on the backstretch, headed for 3.
They were talking about guys that are real veterans here that know how to win races and championships. They're going to be working at this. They've been trying to get a race set up the whole time. And as you can see right now, they're doing it. They're not as concerned about Zanardi getting away as some of the other people are.
Michael Andretti in that all-new Swift chassis. They've been keeping a very low profile. Michael just gives a wry grin and says, I like the car. It looks good. Plenty of action still to come. We are live at Homestead Motorsports Complex. We'll be back as Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami.
Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. This ABC Sports exclusive brought to you by Toyota Motorsports. Our minds are always racing. Firestone, America's tire since 1900. Robert Bosch Corporation, makers of Bosch Platinum, the ultimate spark plug. And Brewery Fresh Budweiser, who reminds you fresh beer tastes better.
Back at Homestead Instead, we've had a change of position. Michael Andretti has moved up to the number 5 spot, and look at them go 3 wide. A race leader under attack. You ride with Michael Andretti into turns 1 and 2.
Now remember that was a slower car that set that up. And remember what Dennis Swan told us: if we get these big chops down to the inside like that, they're not going to let the drivers get away. He said the drivers actually requested that they be stricter about moves like that.
Andretti still on the move. More on Michael with Jackaroo.
And it's a big question mark, guys, for Michael Andretti. He brought his primary car, had a total of 9 laps in the first day of practice. They put it away because they kept having oiling problems. Brought his backup car, continued to have oiling problems. They did not have any this morning. They think they might have isolated the problem, but they still feel it's a big question mark. That could be one of the reasons why he's going way towards the front as we watch that Vassar battle on the racetrack.
Jimmy Vassar with Michael Andretti just behind, running 3rd and 4th as they pass Dennis Vitolo, lapping cars within a dozen laps at the start of this race.
Well, that's true. That's showing that their cars are working. But what you want to see is what Al said. You got to make sure your car runs all the way through sort of 50 laps through one fuel load on that set of tires. So some guys can be stronger right now, but they might fade at the end of that fuel load.
Close look there at Jimmy Vassar, the Rating Series champion with 4 victories, all coming in the first 6 races of the 1996 season. Off of turn 4, Michael Andretti. Not much input from that steering wheel.
No, but can I tell you something, Bob? Usually when you see very still hands like that, that means the car is doing what you want. If you see a guy in there and his hands are moving around a lot, he's usually not real comfortable with the car.
Michael Andretti, winningest active driver in the series with 35 after winning a series high 5 events in 1996. Looks very comfortable as he continues his charge. Here's how they stand after 14 laps. Zanardi, DeFerrin, Vassar, Andretti, Gugelmin, and Johnstone. And in the chassis war right now, Reynard chassis run 1, 2, and 3. Then the new Swift, another Reynard, and the Penske under Al Unser. Stiffly. The wind continues to blow, and here's where it affects the drivers most, coming off of 4.
Remember, these guys are trying to race, but they're also trying to sort out what the car is doing. They're talking back and forth to the pits and saying, hey, it's doing this. They'll give those reports all the way through that run until their first fuel stop, and then they'll start making adjustments on the car.
View from the Goodyear blimp high overhead. Andretti noticeably closing up on Vassar. Let's ride with him through these corners, see if the wind affects him this time around.
Michael's been taking advantage of everybody having trouble getting through traffic. His car's obviously working well in that disturbed air. Look at him move right in on the back here. He's looking for a chance to take advantage of Jimmy getting through this traffic. It's so critical how easy you can get on that throttle. If you get on a millisecond earlier than the other guy, you can get a run on him down that back straightaway.
Working traffic. I believe that was Max Pappas they went by in the Arciero Wells Racing Toyota-powered machine. Vassar has 3rd, and Andretti wants it. This battle on the racetrack right now. 8 cars remain fairly close together at the front of this group. Parker Johnstone being pursued by Al Unser Jr. More from Gary Gerald.
All weekend long, we've heard teams say under extended runs, the car has a tendency to go loose. That appears to be the case for the Penske team and Al Unser Jr. He made that rocket run early from 10th to 5th. Now he's slipped back just a little bit, and he's reporting that the car is starting to loosen up. The handling is going away just a bit.
Gary, 2 things happen when you've got a full load of fuel with fresh tires. You got the car a little heavier, it'll stay a little bit more neutral. As that fuel load lightens and those tires get worn down a little bit, then what happens is the car will go toward its tendency, whether that's understeer or oversteer. And let me tell you, oversteer is not what you want around here. It's a very difficult thing to drive on an oval, but he looks like he's coming back on Parker a little bit.
That is for 5th place. Here's how they stand after 20 of 148 scheduled laps. Plenty of action still to come. Live from Homestead. Stay with us. Approaching 205 miles an hour live at the Homestead Motorsports Complex. You ride with Gilles de Ferran. On the pit road, one of the All-American racers, Toyotas. There's Al Unser Jr. Now we have a report from the quarter stations that he is slowing down.
Yeah, he's on the pit lane. He's coming in. He's obviously got a problem.
Both Juan Fangio II and PJ Jones have their Reynard Toyotas in the pits as well.
Smoke coming out of the back of Al Unser Jr. there. They're changing tires, but I think he's not stopping for tires. He wouldn't do it, not at the pace he was running. He was running strong enough. Look, he's frustrated.
Down to Gary Gerald.
And the reason for that frustration, the crew reports that he radioed the engine just quit running. So some of the high expectations that entered this 97 season right now have hit a giant bump in the road. Little Al, they've got the back cowling off. They're working here. He's still in the car, but now we see Pat Hawley saying, nope, that's it. He's going to be coming out.
The mechanics obviously saw something there that they didn't. They could tell that it was terminal, or they would have tried to fix it. And I know Roger and Al, they would have used it as a test session if it was just something that even had taken them 5-10 laps to get going.
Well, at the top of the show, we wondered if the Penske team would contend in 97. Things aren't looking good right now, and Bobby Rahal is in early as well.
Now, if this is just a tire change and a fuel stop, that means he's got handling problems, and that the balance has really gone bad on him.
Meanwhile, on the racetrack, Jimmy Vasser with Michael Andretti just behind it, slower traffic ahead.
Bob, one of the things that I'm noticing from last year's race to this year, even though they widened the track 24 feet, they reduced the wings, they changed the boost. Boy, he got up high. Whoever was in that blue car was really up high. But what I'm noticing is that traffic is really making a difference to your passes and so forth, just like it did last year. If you get held by a slower car in the middle of the corner, somebody can get a run on you. They make the pass. We've seen people swapping back and forth. So traffic is going to play a part all afternoon.
Michael Andretti stalking Jimmy Vasser for third.
Bobby Rahal did go back out of the pit, so I've got a feeling that his car is probably a little loose.
Here's a rundown of the field at 32 complete. Zanardi, de Ferran, Vasser, Andretti, Parker Johnstone, Greg Moore, Mauricio Gugelmin is slowing, Raul Boesel, Paul Tracy, Scott Pruitt, Patrick Carpentier, and the leader is slowing. Alex Zanardi suddenly slows. Now he looks like he's getting back up to speed,
but look who got by. I mean, Gilles de Ferran got by him. He's in the lead. What I just said was about traffic. Look, Zanardi's back on it. Somebody obviously held him up big time. Zanardi got a run through those two corners. He had all the speed, and Zanardi lost that big lead he had.
And more traffic lies ahead. Meanwhile, Gary Gerald has something from the pit lane.
Al Unser Jr. out of the car. You made a great move from that fifth row up to fifth. Then things started to deteriorate. What happened?
Well, we had a good start and so on, but the car, I lost those couple positions because of traffic. I run into traffic, and the guys had to run on me. Traffic's going to play a big, major part in today's race, but you know, the Marlboro car was going great, and you know, we were just basically running some laps, seeing who's going to go off or who's not, and I was in a real comfortable position for the time in the race, and the engine let go. I don't know exactly what happened to it, but
in a year when you try to shake away some of the disappointment of last year and you have great expectations, this has got to really hurt a lot.
It hurts, you know. We did a lot of testing down here preparing for this race, and to see us go out like this before even half distance is a shame. But I would say hi to little Al and Cody and Shannon and Shelly and I's new little boy Joey, and thanks, Al. Thanks.
All right, Gilles de Ferran has not only passed Alex Zanardi for the lead, he is drawing away. Let's learn more on Zanardi's situation with Jack Arute.
Bob, as you surmised it was strictly the car in traffic. He had to get on the binders hard. Alex Zanardi backed up, and that was the plus for Gilles de Ferran. But de Ferran is reporting to Team Walker that his car is starting to go real bad loose. No major concern right now because we're approaching the window for the first stop. Will it be under green or under yellow? My bet is we're going to see our first green flag stop shortly.
35 laps complete.
One of the things that I noticed from that, if that traffic is that big of a problem, maybe the reason that Zanardi was so far out there in front is he had that clear air turbulence in front of him. He didn't have any problems. He was going through traffic. Now he's in traffic. He can't seem to get by the car in front of him. Maybe his car doesn't work as well as he'd like in that traffic situation. We'll have to stay tuned to that one.
Well, this race is going down at a frantic pace. You see Alan Zanardi finds himself in traffic once again. I think Alonso Jr. was right. Traffic will be a key element in today's race. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Back live at Homestead with a program note here on ABC Sports. A great auto racing doubleheader coming your way next Sunday, beginning at 1 Eastern Time, 12 Central and Pacific. And the first, the cars of the Winston Cup in the Prime Star 500 from Atlanta Motor Speedway. And then at 5 Eastern, 4 Central and Pacific from Daytona, first round of the International Race of Champions. All that next Sunday here on ABC Sports. Now down in the pit lane, Christian Fittipaldi has a problem. He was called in for a black flag, but when he came in, brought the car to a stop, the crewman came over and told him to shut it off.
I don't know what it is, but they instantly came up, and now, of course, you see him moving the bodywork off the side there. That's, again, not a very good sign. For Christian staying in the car, so maybe they think they can fix it.
Remember, this is an all-new chassis built in California by Swift Engineering, designed by David Bruns.
Remember, Michael said in his primary car and his backup, he had some oil problems with it.
Quickly to Jackaroo.
Well, guys, here's what the problem is. Christian Fittipaldi will not be allowed to go back out until the team can determine where the fluids were being sprayed. They pulled the bonnet off the car, couldn't find anything, so it looks as if Gary Gerald, Christian Fittipaldi's day is ended. Back to you.
Hoping for better fortune, Parker Johnstone. We talk about the nerves of the drivers, the crew being tested for the first time. He's off and running. 12.3 seconds. Nice stop, Parker Johnstone and company.
That was a pretty cool shot, too, that overhead looking down on there.
It's difficult to overstate all of the work that takes to get good pit stops. Problems in 2. We have a car down on the infield. That is Dario Franchitti, fastest man in this morning's practice and one of the top rookies in the series. He was running just outside the top 10. But as you can see, he is hit with the right side very, very hard.
Yeah, if you get a wheel knocked off like that, that's a big hit. And I would imagine the cars, you know, he's a rookie, first time in these type of cars. He's got a lot of experience, but yeah, he came out, got it wide, tore off the right rear, just turned it left and went down there.
You can follow the tire skid marks down to the inside wall. Franchitti driving for Carl Hogan. Let's have another look.
Oh, he's up high. See, he's up in that gray area. He can't turn it. Boy, he had a bad angle. He hit it with the right rear. He must have gotten it turned right there at the end, but that was that is very similar to what we saw Gilles de Ferran yesterday. Once you get up in that gray, there's nothing you can do, and you lift off with those little wings. You lift off, it just keeps going in the direction.
And there is Franchitti climbing out, wearing the Scottish flag on his helmet. It appears he's all right. Down to Jackaroo.
And Christian Fittipaldi is not at all happy about what happened, but have you determined what the problem was, Christian?
There was a big oil leak in the engine, and then they black flagged me because of the oil leak, and that's the way it goes on the rule books. It's unfortunate because the car was handling perfect. I did a very bad start. I just took it very easy. I was afraid of some accidents, and then I was really passing people on the track, which was very difficult here. And I think I was from like 16th, 17th up to 10th, and you guys can see how also Mike is going pretty good. So I was really optimistic of finishing in the top 3 today. The car and the race conditions was handling perfect.
So guys, no question, even though he's out, thus far the jury is in terms of the performance of the new Swift, and it gets an A.
All right, thank you, Jack. You see the debris being cleaned up on the backstretch. We're under a full course caution.
You know, Michael and Christian both told me the same thing, that car, the first time they drove it, they both liked the car. They said it was great. And for me, that's always an indicator. If they come out of the box and they feel good and they're fast, you've got a pretty good race car.
Well, we saw Parker Johnstone pit under the green. Now we'll see some yellow flag pit stops. A great opportunity for some of the top drivers in this race. Gilles de Ferran leads, his first lead since last year at Cleveland. 60-mile-an-hour speed limit on the pit road.
Probably been a while for Walker Racing to be in that position too, and after yesterday, those guys didn't come away from qualifying as happy as they'd like to with a mangled car. They've got to be very pleased right at the moment.
Leader in the pits.
It's amazing for a driver when you're sitting there looking dead ahead how little you realize all the panic that's going on around you.
Down to Jackaroo.
Well, Gilles de Ferran flashed by as Alex Zanardi comes in. They're going to take a turn out of the car, but the problem is he will find himself fired back in fourth position because Michael Andretti, quick work by that team, and he will find himself out faster than Zanardi.
Jack, can you tell me what they took a turn out of? Was it the front or the rear?
Danny, what they did is they took a turn out of the front wing.
That means that the car is too loose, so he's trying to take away a little of the front downforce.
Well, here's what happens. The temperature at 2 o'clock, the ambient temperature down here is 85 degrees, but the track is skyrocketed to 106 degrees. All the teams, Danny, are starting to report, as you alluded to, as the fuel loads went down, the cars were going loose. One of the things they said was, unlike the old cars, they go loose real quick. So they were a little bit concerned, but the fuel window was there. So now let's see what the adjustments will do with a full tank of fuel.
All right, thank you, Jack. Here's a look at a new statistical development on our coverage of the PPG Kart World Series this year. The green race average speed, only under green flag conditions. And as you can see, 172.037 miles an hour. Just one of the nuances we'll be bringing to you in our coverage of the series. We'll be back with more live from Homestead in just a moment. Back live at Homestead, here's a look at the top 5, including both of Chip Ganassi's driver, Alex Zanardi and Jimmy Vasser, running 3rd and 5th. While we have a moment under this full course caution, let's take a closer look at two men from opposite sides of the racing world who met at the summit of their sport.
Zanardi, see, I did a test in Formula 3000.
Everything came up to my mind in that particular moment, but the fact that this guy would have been my teammate in 5 years' time.
I had a great time, but I remember that he was one of the fast guys.
Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi, two men as different as their birthplaces, Canoga Park, California, and Bologna, Italy. But as distinct as their paths to the top have been, they share the influence of loving fathers.
My father used to drag race out at Irwindale Drag Strip in Southern California.
1980, my father bought me the first go-kart, and that's how I started.
I think I was probably 3 years old, and I was racing 3 years later in quarter midgets.
He's always been my first fan, my first supporter, my first mechanic when I was driving go-kart. And if I'm here today, it's also actually, especially because of what he did for me.
I didn't have a choice. My dad was such a motorhead and so much into racing that it's all I've done and known.
He understood that that's my own life, and I got the right to play with it as I wanted. And he became, as I said, my main supporter.
While Zanardi followed the traditional European pattern, karting to Formula 3 and Formula 3000, then Formula 1 before being hired by Chip Ganassi for '96. Vasser won national titles in quarter midgets, Formula Ford, and Toyota Atlantics. Unlike Zanardi, success did not come quickly for Vasser, but when it did, that success was complete. Despite their differences as personalities, they are similar men, racers to their very souls. And as teammates in this most competitive of sports, they genuinely like one another. Back live now, Danny Sullivan, you know teammates are not always best of friends. It's interesting to see the interplay between Vasser and Zanardi.
Well, it doesn't happen always, but it is a great feeling when you've got a teammate that you can really count on. And I got to tell you, Rick Mears was one of the best ever for me. We were good friends, but he was a great teammate. Somebody to share things with you, help you. If you had a problem, you could go to him and talk. That's very, very important.
Of course, Rick Mears on hand with the Penske team this weekend. Let's go down to the pit lane and Gary Gerald.
Penske team has already had some misadventure with Al Unser Jr. falling out, but his teammate Paul Tracy's made a great run, and he had a terrific pit stop, 11.1 seconds, and he gained a couple of more positions. currently listed in 3rd. He also thinks that they could have squeezed out another 5 or 6 laps before they had to pit, which means they're getting good fuel economy. And if that's the case, they may be able to make this a 2-stop race, something to keep in mind down the road. On the other hand, Parker Johnstone got lost in the shuffle because of that early stop under green. He ends up losing a lap. That is huge for Barry Green's team. One man who's out of the competition here is PJ Jones. PJ, what happened to end your day?
You know, I was just coming down into 3, and I got a whole bunch of smoke in the cockpit. I think we had an oil leak or something. But, you know, for one time we had a good handling car on the oval. We just need to work on that horsepower part. And it seems like the team's coming a long way. It's just unfortunate that we had to end so short.
Another one of those questions starting to be answered. And keep an eye on this Gurney Toyota team as they move up in 97. Wish you well.
Okay, thank you.
Jack?
Gary, you're talking about the possibility of some two-stop races. Well, how about for the leader, Jill DeFerrin? You've been on the radio during this caution. You figured out what your window is for this fuel period. How many laps can you go?
Well, we can go a little bit more than what we just did. It really depends on how hard a pace we want to run. So it's really up to Jill. He's the guy running the pedal out there.
Now, Derek, I'm not a math major, but if you can go like you did the last time, that would put you well within the 2-stop window. What type of fuel conservation measures would you make? Would you go down on it just a little bit in terms of fuel metering early in the race here and early in this segment?
No, that's one of the advantages to running a Honda engine. You can go that far. No, a little bit of adjustment, not serious, really.
He likes to play it real close to the vest, guys, but we've been monitoring the radio, and they've been chattering a lot about numbers.
All right, thank you, Jack. Here's a look at our running order. We'll be back for the green flag in a moment. Coming up following our live coverage of today's PPG Kart World Series event, stand by for Payne Weber College basketball here on ABC Sports. Most of the nation will see number 7 Duke take on number 8 North Carolina in a game that means everything in the ACC. Some of you will see Big 12 number 1 Kansas meeting Nebraska, while Pac-10 foes Washington and number 15 Arizona will also go at it. All that coming up next here on ABC Sports. Here in Homestead, we expect a green flag shortly under our restart procedure. The faster cars, those unlapped, those on the lead lap, if you will start to the right of your screen, down low. Parker Johnstone will lead the lapped cars up high.
And he's been fast, so he's going to want to try to get that lap back. He's going to want to jump that start, hope he gets in front of Gilles DeFerrin. Now he's back on the lead lap, and then if a yellow comes. So that's not always the case in those restarts, but in this one it is. Don't forget the drivers pick which side they want to be.
We have crossed flags. Form up. Next time by will go green. Here's Jack Root.
Hey guys, that's a big break for Gilles DeFerrin. Remember, we're talking about trying to get as many laps under caution as possible for Derek Walker and Gilles DeFerrin because they're going to try and make this a 2-stop race. They were ready on the button on the radio to tell Gilles to go up when they were going to green. When they said we've got one more lap of yellow, Gilles DeFerrin says, well, that's good news. They are trying to squeeze as much out of this Honda as possible during this fuel run to make this a 2-stop race.
Thank you, Jack. There you see the field forming up on the backstretch behind the Toyota safety car. Ride with Michael Andretti.
And Michael's one of the best on restarts. He's got a lot of experience.
Keep your eye on Parker Johnstone to the right. He's going to want to get the jump, as Danny mentioned, and get into that turn first. Gilles DeFerrin gets on the power. Up come the revs and the speed.
Whoa, he got a good restart. He was going. He didn't care about anybody else on that. And look at that's Zanardi in the red car trying to take a look underneath Michael.
Through turn 2 and on to the backstretch. DeFerrin, Andretti, Zanardi.
And that's Parker. And then Paul Tracy, who started 16th. He's running strong.
Well, last year, Paul Tracy absolutely dominated the early part of the weekend here at Homestead. Qualified on pole, led the first 80-plus laps of the race. Before the transmission let go, he was bitterly disappointed.
And then don't forget who was the late race leader, who also was awful strong, was our leader right now, Gilles DeFerrin. And Jimmy Basser caught him in traffic, snookered him on that restart, and jumped him going into turn 1.
Michael Andretti to the left of your screen runs second. Vassar in third. Gilles de Ferran and wife Angela expecting their second child in April.
Do you think that might have anything to do why Gilles de Ferran's restart was so strong that time? He had memories of last year. He didn't want to lose that lead.
You can be sure that Gilles de Ferran remembers the race last year. Of course, Gilles de Ferran had lots of disappointments last year. Recall Long Beach, where he dominated before the car gave up on him late in the event. Driving a car that was a show car just a few short weeks ago. There's Paul Tracy. Red and white Penske machine. Jack Arute in the pit lane.
You know, guys, as we watch Gilles de Ferran run away from the field at least a little bit right now, consider this fact. We talked about having go to the backup car. The car that you see in your screen right now being driven by Gilles de Ferran 6 days ago came out of a shopping mall and went to Talladega, Alabama to make a TV commercial. Until this morning, that was the last time that Gilles de Ferran sat in this automobile. They took it from the TV commercial here. They're using it as their backup car after crashing their primary yesterday in qualifying.
Well, Jack, let's not forget, though, too, Al Unser Sr. won an Indianapolis 500 with a car that Penske took out of a lobby of a hotel in Reading, Pennsylvania, and won the next weekend. These guys can prepare these cars. The teams have all the setup, all the details. They just dial them in, and now we can see what's happening. He's leading this race.
I asked Gilles earlier this weekend the difference between the Walker team he's with now and Jim Hall's team, for whom he raced last year. He said the difference is resources. We have more testing, more time in the car, more setup information, simply more of everything, and that inspires confidence.
Bob, you know something else? We're all talking about finding that package, whether it's an engine, a tire, a chassis. But part of that, too, is matching up with a team and getting everything that you can out of that team. And the chemistry in one of those teams is very important.
Our shots today from high overhead are closing up down low. That's Mauricio Gugelmin. He's about to thank our friends from the Goodyear Blimp Stars and Stripes. We'll be seeing them throughout the afternoon. The shots are coming from the Stars and Stripes out of Pompano Beach, Florida. Captain Dick Esch at the controls. Glad to have him with us here at Homestead. Now let's take another look at what happened just moments ago as Mo Gugelmin goes underneath Jimmy Vasser to take away 5th place.
Oh, but see, Jimmy's locked up a tire. Now the left front is not going to be that big a problem. What happened, he tried to go in there deep, knew that he had to brake or he was going to get up in that gray. Of course, he lost a lot of ground. That tire will be slightly flat spotted, but not a big problem because the left front does so little work around an oval.
66 laps complete of 148 scheduled.
Okay, you can actually see if you look over Vasser's head, look at his hands when we get down the straightaway, they'll be shaking a little bit more. See how he's getting a little bit more movement in the hands? That's because he's got that left front is flat spotted. He'll have to live with that vibration until they see his hands moving right there. He actually took his hand off a little bit to relax it.
Which probably indicates he's having to fight that wheel and hold the car steady as much as possible.
It's more uncomfortable than anything. It's just irritating because that vibration doesn't give a great feel of the road.
Getting back to our point about what the package is to have in 1997, right now it's pretty much a mixed bag. We've got a Reynard, a Swift, a Reynard, and a Penske in the top 4, and 3 different engines, Honda, Ford, and Mercedes.
Well, we've got 3 sets of Goodyears, I believe, up there, and 1 Firestone.
Now here's another of the rookies we'll be watching in 97. Patrick Carpentier, former speed skater from Quebec in Canada. Whoa, we have a spinner. Up against the wall is Gilles de Ferran.
Oh, I don't know what happened there.
You saw his hands go in the air as if to say, how can that happen?
If he put his hands up, it was obviously a traffic situation. Look at him. He's gesturing down to the car that's parked in the left of your screen down there.
And that car is spun, turned in the wrong direction. Here's another look. De Ferran down low.
Trying to go in. Oh, the other car came in. That was Vitolo, I believe.
I believe it's Dennis Vitolo.
He just came in. He got passed by the one car. Look at that. He got passed by the MCI car, and then he cut back in to get back down underneath him and never saw Gilles de Ferran.
Frustration evident in Gilles de Ferran as he talks with the safety crew. There is Vitolo. Returning to the series after a limited schedule in recent seasons. He has spun completely around at the exit to turn 3. And he remains in the car. Notice the bolsters around the driver's head, a part of the safety program for 97.
Oh.
Look at the cars coming up from behind. Andretti and Vassar lucky to avoid DeFerrin.
Now he's coming down. He's following the MCI car, the first car, the blue one. He's going in underneath him. The MCI car moves up high. That's Pepe's. Moves up high. Look at that. He was way down, almost hit the cone.
With them all locked up, he slides up to the wall, and that is the end of the day for DeFerrin. Jack Arute in pit lane.
All Jill DeFerrin said as he started into that crash, and once the dust had settled, he radioed to Derek Walker, "This is the most ridiculous situation I have ever encountered in my life." You could see on the replay, guys, all the way down in the dirt, but this also was a break for Jimmy Vassar and Alex Zanardi. Vassar has a problem with his onboard weight jacking. That's why he backed out of the throttle dramatically. Wasn't sure if he had a problem. And Zanardi radioed in because, as you could see on the replay, he was right in the midst of that. In broken Italian and broken American, he said, "I'm a very, very lucky person."
Lucky indeed. In fact, I think Max Papis knew that Gilles DeFerrin was coming up behind him. There is the running order. Who's out front? Michael Andretti. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Back live at Homestead, you see the crew looking over Dennis Vitolo's machine. He didn't hit anything in that collision with Gilles DeFerrin. He simply spun to a stop and may be able to get back in this race.
Well, he did make some contact, but not severe. Okay, they're coming off of turn 2. He's coming down the back straightaway. That's the MCI car. Pep is pulling out. It goes in underneath, and look at this. And Vitolo just comes across. Now, my opinion is, boy, that hurts. But my opinion is that Gilles wasn't quite there yet into the corner, but also that Vitolo came down too hard. He still had to be paying attention in his mirrors. But you got Gilles in there. He's also got the cars behind him, Michael and everybody. He knows how difficult traffic is. If he gets held up there, those guys probably have a runoff coming off turn 4, and they're going to pass him. So he's trying to make something happen. It might just have been a little too premature.
It has been a rough weekend for Walker Racing. You ride with Michael Andretti behind the safety car as we remain under a full chorus caution. Andretti, Zanardi, and Tracy when we go green. Speaking of Paul Tracy, back on Thursday afternoon, over 100 Harley motorcycle riders, including Paul Tracy and some of the other PPG car drivers, Richie Hearn and Roberto Moreno included, rode their bikes 20 miles from downtown Miami to the banks of Homestead Motorsports Complex. The ride benefited the Bonaconti Fund to find a cure to spinal injuries, raising over $2,000 for a very worthy cause. We'll be back with more from Homestead after this.
Bumper to bumper LA style. Bumper to bumper New York style. Bumper to bumper Atlanta style. Red hot Jeff Gordon in NASCAR's best burn up the track in Atlanta at the Prime Star 500. Followed by the first challenge in the International Race of Champions next Sunday on ABC. Toyota presents the Grand Prix of Miami. This ABC Sports exclusive brought to you by Miller Lite, who reminds you that anything can happen at Miller Tire. Restore, manufacturers of innovative automotive products. Kawasaki Motorcycles, let the good times roll. And Omega, the official timekeeper of CART.
Back live, great drama as we approach the green flag. Jimmy Vassar makes an emergency pit stop. Down to Gary Gerald, who's standing by with Dennis Vitolo.
Situation, tell us what it looked like from your seat.
What it looked like for me was Max Pappas behind me for quite a bit, and then he got a run out of me out of 2 down into turn 3, and I let him by, and I didn't think we were for position, and then he just really got on the brakes and kind of checked me up a bit. I got very close to him trying to avoid him, but I think the DeFerrin tried to follow him through, and there just wasn't room for all 3 of us. I think it was just one of those situations. We all just got checked up too close behind him.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Bob?
All right, thank you, Gary. We're about to go green. Jimmy Vassar moving his way back up into the line of lead lap cars. They are down low once again. The lap cars up high. Off the turn they come. Michael Andretti leading the way. The green flag waves, and having Andretti out front is ominous for the rest of the field. Michael led 7 races in 1996 and won 5 of them.
Oh, big break for Michael right there, because Parker Johnstone did not let Alex Zanardi through, and Michael's got a little bit of clear air in front of him, but he's also got a little gap there, a little breathing room. Not that he hasn't been in this position many a time before.
Alex Zanardi has not particularly fond memories of his first ever PPG kart oval race here at Homestead. The wheels literally came off late in the race, and he wound up against the wall. Here's a look at our running order past the halfway mark. Andretti, Zanardi, Tracy, Gugelmin, Scott Pruitt, Greg Moore, Patrick Carpentier, highest ranking rookie in the field right now. Raul Boesel, Jimmy Vasser, Parker Johnstone, your top 10. Let's get down to Jack Arute.
Gilles de Ferran, after running so well, so strong, to have it end this way, your feelings?
It's so tragic, it's almost funny. I mean, it's a real shame. I mean, I've been happy with the car ever since Friday morning practice started. The car was running really well. I was running at my own pace, and you know, when the restart happened, I was pacing myself quite well in front of Andretti, and then we came to lap some back markers. I was beside the guy going into turn 3, and I can only think he never saw me, because I was beside him and he just turned in, hit the side of my car, and I couldn't control it, and I spun off and hit the wall.
Well, guys, one of the things about kart racing is the fact that Brazilians speak to Brazilian television live. So now, instead of answering in English, Gilles de Ferran answers in Portuguese.
It's a sad story he has to relate. Thank you, Jack. You ride with Scott Pruitt, who started 11th, and you see his march through the field. He presently runs in the 5 spot. Gary Gerald has more on his situation.
Well, I'll tell you, Pat Patrick and this team are delighted with the way this number 20 car of Scott Pruitt is responding. We've heard so many reports of cars going loose, making wing adjustments, one thing or another. They haven't touched a thing on this race car from when they started. They've just methodically worked their way up. They wanted to spend the entire first fuel load just getting a feel, see if they could hold with the setup. It worked beautifully. Now they think they're in a position to go racing, as you mentioned, running 5th after starting 11th.
And driving a Reynard chassis, the Patrick team had been using Lolas for many seasons. In fact, tested the 97 Lolas before making a change very late in the testing season to the Reynard chassis.
Well, of course, they make that change right before spring training. They were a little bit behind on that, but they have a great team over there, and Jim McGee, who I worked for years, is one of the best team managers out there. These guys are going to get it sorted out, and that's obviously a very good chassis with everybody else running that car.
Running behind the top 10, Brian Herta is 11th, Mark Blundell 12th, Richie Hearn, in one of the few Lolas in this field, is in 13th, Andre Ribeiro runs 14th, Walter Salas 15th, Alex Fernandez 16th, and Bobby Rahal back in 17th.
One thing about Scott Pruitt's car combination is I think they're the only Reynard Ford Firestone in the field, other than his teammate, obviously.
One of those 14 different chassis, engine, and tire combinations in this field. As mentioned, the highest ranking rookie in the group, Patrick Carpentier, driving for Tony Bettenhausen with Alumax sponsorship. The car Stefan Johansson has driven for seasons in past. Let's go to Gary for more on Carpentier's situation.
Well, Bob, as you well know, you and I have had a chance to watch this young man advance through the Atlantic Championship Series, a series that he just dominated like no driver in history dominated last year. Tony Bettenhausen has been almost giddy with joy at the way this young man has tested, qualified, and is now racing. In fact, in the hotel yesterday, I was talking with Tony, and Tony says, you know, I just sometimes have to pinch myself. He can't believe how well this rookie reads a race car, imparts knowledge to the crew. They are excited. They think they've got a genuine chance to be competitive through this 97 season.
No question about it, Gary. Patrick Carpentier broke some of the late Gilles Villeneuve's records in Atlantic competition. And the Bettenhausen team has made changes in the garage as well, not just in the driver's seat. They have added several new engineers to that team from the Penske operation, and they are running strong.
And Stefan Johansson stepped out and became a team owner in Indy Lights, and he had a second-place finish today with his new young driver, and actually swapped the lead a couple times on the last couple of laps, so they were very excited. So he's gone from driver to team owner.
Carpentier going low, learning with every lap. He's had an interesting career as a driver. Years ago, he had a personal services contract with his car owner in a minor league series in Canada. That team folded, but the car owner refused to release him from his contract. He sat out at least one full season simply because no one else could hire him. Traffic as you look ahead from Scott Pruitt's car.
Taking a look down there on Big Mo. He wanted to go in there. Look at this. That's right next to Brian Herta. Very professional move there. Brian saw him, moved over. Very good, safe racing. Brian's a lap down, so.
And Brian's car owner, Bobby Rahal, is 2 laps. Make that 3 laps down.
I've been watching Bobby make a few unscheduled pit stops. I don't think his car's handling very well, so he keeps coming in, I believe, changing tires.
Let me correct myself. 2 laps down is Bobby Rahal, the 3-time series champion. On the straightaway. Now you ride with Bobby Rahal. Let's see what we can detect from the steering input as to how that car is handling.
He's talking on the radio. Push that little button with his left thumb there. Well, he's got a pretty good grip on that wheel. When he's turning it that much, he's usually got a car that's pushing a little bit. See how his hand's almost up on top of the wheel? He's pushing a little bit there.
Down to Jack Arute with more on Rahal.
Bobby Rahal, as you guys have alluded to, has been chasing a loose condition all through this race. A tough situation for this owner and driver to find himself in. But one of the great things, as you know, Danny, about Bobby Rahal is he not only will he never quit, but he'll take advantage of this situation to try and learn as much about the package that we keep referring to from this race and try to transfer it to some of those other 16 chapters we still have to write for the chase to the championship.
Well, that's right. I think he's adjusted it a little bit. I think on these new tires, he's got a little bit of push in there, which will go to a loose condition.
There you see the problems he's had as the laps have unfolded. It's interesting to note Bobby Rahal's team, personnel-wise, has remained very stable over the years, but he has tinkered with his mechanical setup. We know about the changes from his True Sports chassis. We know about him bringing the Honda engine into the series and then leaving it. This year he's moved from Mercedes power to the Ford XD V8. Hopes of taking his team back to the top. There's the top 12 through 91 laps, courtesy of Omega Timing. We'll be back with more from Homestead in just a moment. This week here on ABC, you can catch the premieres of 3 outstanding new series. First tomorrow, spies who don't take themselves too seriously. It's called Spy Game. Then on Tuesday night, from the creator of Picket Fences and Chicago Hope, comes the season's next great drama, The Practice. And on Wednesday night, after Drew Carey, Arsenio's back in his brand new comedy co-starring Vivica Fox. Spy Game premieres Monday, The Practice Tuesday, and Arsenio on Wednesday. It's a great week for all new shows here on ABC. Homestead, you ride with Scott Pruitt, who has moved into 4th place now, having gotten around Mauricio Gugelmin. Paul Tracy crosses the start-finish line with Pruitt closing up. Ahead, Michael Andretti holds the lead with Alex Zanardi in 2nd, then Tracy and Pruitt. Gugelmin now 5th, Greg Moore is 6th, Raul Boesel 7th, followed by Patrick Carpentier in 8th, Jimmy Vasser 9th, and Parker Johnstone 10th. But Vasser, remember, made that late pit stop just before we went green for a tire change, and he's having to work his way back through the field. A huge crowd on hand here on a beautiful afternoon for racing at Homestead. Onto the backstretch, well over 200 miles an hour before lifting for turn 3. Let's check with some of our top stories from the beginning of our program. Will the Penske team come back to win in 1997? Well, the evidence is mixed. Al Unser Jr. has dropped out of the race with mechanical problems. Paul Tracy runs 3rd, but could come under fire shortly from Scott Pruitt. Is the Ganassi team for real in 97? Alex Zanardi runs 2nd, Jimmy Vasser 9th, and moving up. And of course, the Magic package, the chassis, engine, and tire combination you want to have for the 97 campaign. Well, let's check our top 5. In terms of chassis, a Swift, a Reynard, a Penske, another Reynard, and another one in 5th place. Engines, Ford in 1st, Honda 2nd, Mercedes 3rd, Ford 4th, Mercedes 5th. And Danny, you've been telling me all weekend it's going to be several races before we can learn exactly what the combination to have is going to be as you view our race summary.
Well, I think so, because it usually takes a couple of races for everybody to get settled in. Don't forget, we go from here, a 1.5-mile oval, to a street race in Australia, back to a street race at Long Beach. Then we go to another oval. I mean, you've got a little mix in there. It takes a few people to get some, settled out. Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi had a great test here in Miami in the preseason. They went to Laguna Seca, said it was a disaster. They couldn't get the car to work very well. I'm sure they'll make some changes and get that right. Everybody tested well in some places and not well in others. So it takes them a couple of races to get it figured out. We had some engine problems so far today, and some teams haven't. We've had some oil leaks. It'll take them all a couple of races to get those bugs sorted out.
Not only do you have to conquer every type of racetrack of the PPG Kart World Series, you have to conquer every sort of distance. Today's race, 225 miles on a short oval, will go all the way up to 500 miles on the super speedways at Michigan and Fontana. Down to Jackaroo.
Bob, as we watch the leader circuit, actually we've been watching Paul Tracy and, of course, Scott Pruitt in that battle. Meanwhile, back up front, it looked as if Zanardi was beginning to close on Michael Andretti, and then it stabilized at about 4 seconds. The reason was because all of a sudden the pit window is open. Look for Michael Andretti to pit in 4 more laps. Zanardi has been instructed to follow suit, so this thing could be won or lost on pit road. No cliche there, guys.
Let's rejoin Michael Andretti right now. There you see him with traffic ahead.
A trivial question to you. Michael's leading right now in a brand new chassis. Okay, this is its debut. Who won the last, first time out in a new chassis race? Who was the driver and what was the chassis?
Let me guess. Last man to win in the debut of a new chassis would be Australia, Michael Andretti in a Reynard.
You got driving for who?
Chip Ganassi. I'll admit I had some help. Parker Johnstone in and out of the pits. Things looking pretty routine there.
The only thing we noticed, of course, he made an early pit stop, so he has to go fewer laps than everybody else. He lost that lap because he got in, then the yellow came out. He didn't get to pit with everybody else and went a lap down.
Another yellow flag right now would be brutal for Johnstone's chances.
Michael's down on the inside. Looks like he's going down to the pit lane. That's what he was doing.
Jackaroo awaits him in the Newman Haas pit. Teammate Christian Fittipaldi out of the race with an oil leak. No fault of the chassis.
And Bob, the big caution right now, Lee White is telling Michael Andretti, watch your speed, watch your speed. There's an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. Michael Andretti looking, he picks up the point now from inside the cockpit. It's a dangling sign over pit road. Then he has to hit the marks exactly. He gets on them, they go to work. Now what they're going to do is they're going to adjust with the onboard weight jacker, make some adjustments to compensate for the 35 gallons of fuel that are going on board. The clock ticking off, try to keep the revs up. The Swift is away in 13.9 seconds. A very nice stop for your leader.
Strategic choice of pit there for Michael Andretti, too. Right at the end of it, he could come up to speed very quickly. Scott Pruitt now leaves his pit.
Notice he went slow. He didn't want to hit that hose in front of him. If he had hit that hose, he has a stop-and-go penalty for doing that, even if it's in another pit's team. So if they're a little slow to get that out of the way, they can cost him a little bit of time.
I mentioned Michael Andretti getting up to speed in a hurry. We understand that Galter Salas with the Davis Craig racing team, that was the Jim Hall team a year ago. He will be called in for excessive pit lane speed as you watch Alex Zanardi hitting that 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. Jackaroo.
Guys, here's what's going to happen with Alex Zanardi. It is going to be a short stop. What that means is no tires. They're going to try and make up the difference between themselves and the leader by only taking on fuel. Now they change their mind. So what they're going to do is try and change the tires, whatever time it takes to change the tires. Look at this, the fuel's done, and they're having a problem on the right rear. A gamble that has gone awry for Alex Zanardi. Actually, this is Jimmy Vasser, that's why. Here's what's happening. Vasser was trying in 24.8 for Alex Zanardi. Not a good stop, and it was a gamble, and it didn't work, guys.
Thank you, Jack. We've got a car going slowly. That's Max Pappas in the Arciero Wells MCI-sponsored machine, a Reynard with Toyota power, and he has come to a stop.
put that yellow out yet, but they've got to be thinking about it to see if they can get over. That was a little close in the pit lane.
He is right. He's between turns 3 and 4, just short of the pit entrance. Would you guess out of fuel, Danny?
I would imagine he's out of fuel because everybody's trying to make their stops right now. They haven't done it yet. Everybody that's driving, if I'm a driver out there and I haven't stopped them, go, come on, put that yellow out. Please put that yellow out so that I get a pit stop under yellow. Yellow's coming out. Boy, the guy, that's good for Paul Tracy, but boy, that hurts Michael.
And Andre Rivero pitted just before, entered the pit lane just before that yellow came out.
Boy, that cost him, but this is really going to help. This is really going to help Penske with Paul Tracy. That's a big plus for them.
What are these cars capable of? Well, Parker Johnstone for Team Green went 60 laps on a load of fuel and a set of tires. Barry Green told me this weekend they're working very, very hard on their fuel mileage. They're very proud of their ability to wring every possible mile out of that gallon.
Here's one of the problems, though, that you've got. They've got the pits closed at the moment for that yellow to get that guy out of the way. So if you're on fumes right now and you can't stop, you've really got to be conservative.
Let's get down to Jack.
While during pit stops, you use a pneumatic wrench like this. The center lug goes in here. You actually depress the button, it spins it off, and then spins it back on. This one was faulty. It failed. You can see the work going on for the replacement one for the right rear now. That was a costly error, a mechanical error, something, guys, you know, you can never really protect against. Just sometimes that kind of stuff happens.
You know, it's interesting, too, Jack, that those guys have a gun. That gun that they're using right there, they only use that on race day. They don't even use it during practice times or anything else, only race day.
Now that big P being waved by those sign holders meant the pits are now open. The plus sign means only the lead lap cars may come in this time around. It'll be interesting to see how this affects Andretti, Tracy, and the rest. They are now behind the safety car. They're approaching the pit in, and we'll watch it all unfold. Here's Jack Arute.
Danny, to put a postscript on what you were saying, not only do they only use them on race day, but consider this fact. You see this gun right here? That's a spare in case there's a failure. But look at how far it was from pit road. If it had happened, let's say, on the left rear, you could have tossed that over the wall. But the precious seconds were lost, not only when the gun failed, but when a crew member had to run back over the wall, get the spare gun, toss it to the right rear because it was the outside tire. Paul Tracy's coming in now, guys.
Pitting from the lead, Paul Tracy pulls into the Penske pits. Gary Gerald is there.
Boy, this crew was elated. They got a surge of adrenaline when they waited a couple of more laps than we had anticipated and then got the fortuitous yellow. And Tracy's rolling. This is another terrific stop. 10.4 on my clocks.
What a stop. What a stop. And you know they went 64 laps between fuel. So these guys are getting great mileage.
You saw that fist being shaken on the pit wall. The Penske team very proud of their pit stops. There you are with Michael Andretti, presently shown in second place. We'll be back live to Homestead in just a moment after a word from our ABC station. Stay with us. One lap to go before we go green here at Homestead. And once again, the front row, at least geographically speaking, Michael Andretti on the left, Parker Johnstone on the right. Johnstone has spent the whole day up there leading the lapped cars on the outside of the track.
Well, he was very fast. Unfortunately, he lost that lap in stopping under a green when the yellow just came out. Just a minute ago, they were a couple of drivers disputing over which position they should be in, and they finally got it sorted out. But I think Scott Pruitt thought he should be in front of Greg Moore and Vassar, and I guess they were all going back and forth.
Only 4 cars on the lead lap. Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy, Jimmy Vassar, and Greg Moore. Vassar, of course, made that last late pit stop before we went green from the previous yellow flag, and that has helped him hoist himself back up. Right there. On the low side, red car is Vassar, with Moore just behind in the blue machine.
And don't forget, Jimmy Vassar had that problem that he, first of all, he lost a lap, then didn't he have another problem in the pits?
Flag still crossed. You saw the green race average. Now that's just the time spent running under green flag conditions, not artificially slowed by the yellow flags. 175 miles an hour plus. And right now, Michael Andretti is up front. Paul Tracy runs second. Here's a look at them. Jimmy Vasser in third. Let's hear from Jackaroo.
Guys, remember I told you I'm not much of a math major. During that green flag stop, I said that the spit speed limit was 80 miles an hour. Subtract 20 from that. Let's see, that makes it actually, guys, it was only 60 miles an hour here at Homestead, so I stand corrected.
But Jack, one of the things that I'm surprised about with the electronics on these cars, they all have a button on the steering wheel that they push coming down the pit lane that holds the car to 60 miles an hour or whatever the speed limit is. So if you're getting caught by that, by a speeding violation, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, right now it appears we're shuffling the order. Parker Johnstone has been taken from the front of the lap cars. That is the file up high on the racetrack. Alex Zanardi now takes that position. Flags remain crossed and the safety car remains on the racetrack while officials sort out the running order.
And actually, I think we saw that they were putting Big Mo in position and everything. This is actually to benefit them. What they don't want to do is that there's a mistake at a restart and somebody loses a position, and later on they say, you know, if I've been up there, if you guys hadn't put me there. So what they're going to do, especially this late in the race, is get everybody in their proper position and let them go racing. And I think that's only fair.
Paul Tracy led briefly during the caution as pit stop juggled the order on the racetrack. First time Paul Tracy has led since Cleveland last year. Of course, the problems of the Penske team last year have already been documented. Tracy, the only Penske Mercedes on Goodyear tires on the track right now. Al Unser Jr. has retired.
Well, actually, that is Big Mo, Gugelmin, and the outside. That's also Vasser out there. So those guys are all being shown a lap down there on the outside of the track.
Greg Moore in that bright blue and white machine, number 99, had a great race here at Homestead a year ago. Let's get more from Gary Gerald.
Neil Mickelwright kind of oversees the whole operation here for Jerry Forsyth and players. This is a show car, a 96 chassis that's holding its own pretty darn well. You got to be pleased, I would think.
Yeah, we're pretty excited right now. Obviously, you know, the guys have done a tremendous job getting the thing turned around from a show car. It was a pretty much fully functional show car, but we're really happy right now.
When do you get your new chassis, and will it be in time to go racing for the next event on the streets in Australia?
We'll know precisely, probably within a week from now, the exact delivery date, but we do anticipate that we'll have them in time to go to Australia with them.
Boy, this is going to be a busy crew, but maybe with a lot of points under your belt from the first race. Nice job.
Thanks very much.
Neil Mickelwright, gentlemen.
Thank you, Gary. We remain under full course caution. We'll give you a look at our race summary with 119 laps complete, and all eyes will now be on the scoreboard, counting them away to 148. Michael Andretti, the leader, the green race average just over 175 miles per hour. 5 leaders, 8 lead changes in all, 3 caution flags.
I think they're still trying to get everybody sorted out, because we also see now the lead of that outside pack, which is supposed to be a lap down, is Scott Pruitt, who was up in right behind Paul Tracy. So he obviously, a lot of this depended on when you caught the yellow and when you had made your fuel stop. You want to lap down just like that. That's unfortunate, because it was setting up to be a great race for Scott. And now we've got 3 awful good guys right here with Michael and Paul Tracy and Jimmy Vasser, Greg Moore, who was so strong at the end of last year in that 96 car that they were just talking about at this racetrack.
120 laps complete. 28 laps remain. We're being told by officials now that it'll be about another lap and a half before we get this race back under green for what should be the run to the checkered flag. We'll take this time out and return for more from Homestead in just a moment. Stand by for more of the Grand Prix of Miami. Live at Homestead, we restart after a long caution flag to shuffle the field. 4 cars on the lead lap as we run for the checkered flag. Michael Andretti out front, Paul Tracy second, Jimmy Vasser third, Greg Moore fourth.
But look who's in actual second on the track is Scott Pruitt. He got a jump from that outside. He wants to get in front of Michael to get back on that lead lap. And he's actually 5th in the actual race situation, but he wants to get back on that lead lap, hoping for a yellow late in the race so he can actually race for the lead.
If he gets that yellow flag, he can go all the way around and come to the tail end of that lead lap group of just 4 cars at this moment. Michael Andretti in that all-new American-built Swift chassis with Ford horsepower and Goodyear tires. Jack Arute at the pit lane has more to add on Michael.
Guys, remember last year how all the Honda-powered cars had what we euphemistically called the button? For restarts, they could push it, change the fuel metering, and get it jumped. Well, now all of the cars have the button. Lee White radioed to Michael Andretti during that start, Michael, don't use the button. He didn't, and still look how fast he got a break at the drop of the green.
Well, Jack, that's also the advantage when you're the guy that's doing the dictating on the restart. You know, everybody has to go off of you. That's the advantage you get for leading the race. But let me tell you, Scott Pruitt wants to get in front of him, and then he's going to be sitting over there keeping his fingers crossed that he gets a yellow situation, that he can get back in there and have a race for the lead.
Laps continue to tick away here at Homestead. There's the second place car, third in line, but second in the scoring, Paul Tracy in the Penske Mercedes.
All of these guys have plenty of fuel on board. They're going to run it as fast as they can for these final laps.
What a race for Michael Andretti, and what a history for him debuting new chassis in PPG Kart World Series competition if he can hang on. Meanwhile, the Penske team think they may have conquered the pitch sensibility that gave them so many problems last year on any course other than a short oval.
Looking at this right now, if I build a new car, I want Michael to debut it.
Down the backstretch, up over 200 miles an hour, Jimmy Vasser runs in third place. This is the track where he scored his first victory 1 year ago. Plenty of useful championship points to be had from third. And in fourth, Greg Moore, who had an outstanding rookie season last year, and but for the presence of Alex Zanardi, would have been Rookie of the Year.
A lot of people thinking down there in that pit lane just like we are, but there's still a lot of racing to go. And a lot can happen in these final laps.
Alex Zanardi hoping for his first finish here at Homestead in his second visit to the track. Kept in the pits over long when the air gun failed. Lots of experts looking at Alex Zanardi as a championship favorite in 1997. Interesting to see what that does to the chemistry of the Ganassi team.
Moment, we've still got 20 cars running on the racetrack.
28 that started, 4 cars on the lead lap. 1.4 seconds separate Michael Andretti from Paul Tracy. Another 2.5 seconds back is Jimmy Vasser. 3.1 to Greg Moore. Here's Scott Pruitt in the bright orange and yellow car, hanging tough, but he is 1 lap down to the race leader. Christian Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti's teammate, was stopped by an oil leak. Let's hope that moisture is not coming from Michael's car. You see Paul Tracy's interval to the race leader over the last 5 laps. He is dropping back from Michael Andretti.
As a race car driver, this is the most nervous time. You're in a good position. Everything's been going well all day long. You're out there. You've got points. This first race, I'm looking at the championship. I'm thinking, man, if I can come away with these kind of points at this position, I'm really going to come away from here in good position. And there's so much that can happen in these closing laps.
Now, Michael Andretti has led the most laps of the race so far. He cannot be beaten out for the 1 championship bonus point that goes with leading the most laps. So Michael Andretti will add that point bonus to whatever he scores in this race. And right now, he's looking good for the full 20 for the race victory.
That's right, but he and Alex Zanardi are tied at the moment in this championship. Because they've each got 1 point, 1 for the pole and 1 for the most laps. And this, I'm nervous right now because there's a lot of guys out there, friends, that are in good positions right now. They're going to come away from here really pumped with good points and so forth. But I'm just nervous. There's a lot that can go on at this stage of the game.
14 to go. As you watch Paul Tracy, remember our top stories coming into this race. Could the Penske team be competitive on the basis of what Paul Tracy has put up today? I think the answer to that is yes. Is the Ganassi team going to be a factor in 1997? No question about it.
Look at this.
Vasser in third.
Jimmy Vasser in the red car, but right behind him, that blue and white car, Greg Moore. He looks like he's closing in a little bit. That's for third spot.
Back from Jimmy Vasser's car. Greg Moore trying to close up as the laps continue to run down. Now 13 to go. To go for the race leaders.
Well, as we've seen all day long, traffic has been a problem, and our leader is getting into traffic right now. They're starting to come up to lap these cars. Is this going to dictate some of the outcome of this race?
Can Greg Moore feel the draft from Jimmy Vasser's car at that distance, Danny?
With those little wings, probably not. He has to get a little bit closer than that. If they had the bigger wings on, of course, they create a bigger hole in the air. You'll feel the draft from a further distance, but he's not quite close enough.
The gap from Andretti to Tracy now 1.79 seconds. Maybe 10 laps to go next time around as Michael Andretti flashes across the start-finish stripe. Slower traffic ahead of him. Now Michael's going to have to make some decisions.
Well, he'll be safe, and Michael's been in this position so many times before. He doesn't want to make a mistake, but he wants those guys to pay attention up there and realize he's the race leader, and please maybe breathe it a little bit going into the corner.
That's Juan Fangio the second, and Dan Gurney's All-American Racers Reynard Toyota up ahead.
Look at Scott Pruitt moving in that bright red or orange and yellow car. He wants to get that lap back. He wants to be on that lead lap. But Michael's also thinking, I've got the race lead. He knows that Scott Pruitt is not a threat. This is not for position. So he is not going to do anything silly there. He'll let him go. If he gets close enough, he's not going to defend that position. Now, he'll have a different outlook if it's Paul Tracy.
Tracy is bringing the gap down as Michael is slowed by traffic. He gets around Jourdain.
But don't forget that Paul Tracy still has to go through that same traffic.
And the laps continue to tick away. 8 to go. There'll be 7 to go next time across the start-finish stripe. Back on board with Jimmy Vasser now as Greg Moore looms in his rear-view mirrors. Alex Zanardi just behind Moore. There's Vasser in the red car. Moore in blue and white.
Greg Moore putting his nose down there to take a look, but you lose some ground. You lose a little bit of ground when you take that look in there because you can't take the ideal line. There's only 6 laps to go.
See from the tilt of the helmet as the driver leans his head over to fight the G-forces and look ahead through the turn.
Now you were asking me, he can feel it from there. He can feel that right there. It might be a little turbulent, but he can feel that.
Draft that allows the trailing car to close up more quickly. The gap less than half a second from Vasser to Moore.
It's one thing to catch a car, it's another thing to pass a car, especially this late in the race. that are at stake for that position. Seems like he gets a good run on him out of that corner.
4 laps to go next time by. Now we have a car slowing on the backstretch. Car number 40, Raul Boesel. He doesn't take the pit in, however. He stays on the racetrack.
Well, with that few laps going, he wants to stay out there to be as running as he can. He might have a motor problem, but this is a dangerous place to do that because it's so difficult for the car to go too wide around him at speed. He's got big puffs of smoke coming out of him. I just saw a couple.
3 laps to go as leader Michael Andretti flashes by, trying to hoist another brand new chassis to the top of the podium in PPG kart competition. What a remarkable career for this great second-generation racer. Winningest active driver in the series with 35, including a series-leading 5 victories in 1996. And from Jimmy Vasser's car, you look back at Greg Moore drawing ever closer. Does Moore have anything for Vasser for 3rd place? Paul Tracy, meanwhile, has dropped back further behind Michael Andretti. The gap now almost 4 full seconds with 2 laps to go.
Looks to me like Jimmy Vasser had a little bit more in reserve there than Greg Moore did.
At the top of our show, Paul Newman, partners with Carl Haas and Newman Haas Racing, said, "I feel the need for speed." Well, Michael Andretti has given his team all kinds of speed today in this new chassis engine combination. What a day for Swift Engineering, Newman Haas Racing, and Michael Andretti with 1 lap to go. Down the backstretch. Into turn 3. Moving up to the wall and then down into 4 within sight of the checkered flag. Michael Andretti en route to his 36th career victory, his 11th on an oval. 52nd for the Newman Haas team as the checkered flags wave above Michael Andretti, who has taken Swift to victory. Father Mario looking on, and you can bet there are big smiles all around the Newman Haas pit. Michael Andretti is home with a victory, and we'll be back in just a moment. Stand by for more from Homestead. Back live at Homestead, Michael Andretti is in victory lane. Jack Arute is with him.
Well, Michael Andretti, seems if you build a new chassis, you want to get you to drive it. Another first-time victory with a chassis. The Renards, and now getting the congratulations of his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi.
Car was perfect, you know, it's just great. Yeah, I'd love the new chassis every race, be great, but I just had a lot of confidence in it. You know, this morning we made some changes last night and the car was perfect this morning. I think we have a good shot at it, and as soon as the green flag dropped, we went forward and didn't miss a beat. The whole Kmart Haviland guys, they did a great job in the pit.
There's another guy that wants to stick his head in here. He said he had the need for speed at the top of the show. Paul Newman, he is a co-owner of the car, but listening to the radio transmissions, you had oiling problems in your primary car, and then Lee White said at the end of the race, looks like you finally figured the clutch out. What was that all about? Were you having some problems with the clutch?
Yeah, we've been with this car ever since I got in it. All practice long, I'd be stalling it when I went out of the pits, and we got it right there in the end. So.
Your father, so critical through so many years, was there on the headset, really working hard, more so than we've ever seen before, down on pit road. He wasn't sitting up in the perch. He was back and forth with Lee White and the rest of the crew.
Well, he's a great help. You know, there's so many years of experience there, and it always just helps so much to have him there.
When you get a victory like this with a brand new chassis, how does that make you feel for the rest of the season? Again, the other car owner, Carl Haas here, congratulating. Now, Carl is the importer of the Swift chassis, but you're the only one that's going to be driving them this year, you and your teammate. But now, with the first race under your belt, knowing you've got this chassis where it needs to be, what kind of confidence does that give you for the rest of the season?
I have a ton of confidence, and the Ford Cosworth ran great, and the Goodyear tires, so I think we have the whole combination. So we're very excited about this year, you know, and my hat's off to Carl for taking the chance in the car, and I can't wait till the next race.
Well, Gary, one of the questions at the top of the show is who has the best package. Right now, it looks as if Newman Haas has the best package, Bob Varsha.
No question about it, Jack. First victory for an American chassis since Gordon Johncock drove a Wildcat to victory lane at Atlanta Motor Speedway back in 1983. Hats off to Michael Andretti. Here are unofficial results. Paul Tracy comes home second. Vassar, Moore, Pruitt, and Zanardi, the top 6. There you see 7th through 12th. We wondered at the top of the show if the balance of power in PPG Kart World Series racing has shifted. Danny Sullivan has warned us it'll take several races before we know that for sure. But right now, it would appear that Newman Haas with that swift chassis will definitely be a force to be reckoned with as the series moves on. 16 races still to come on 3 continents. And I hope you'll be with us every step of the way. Down to Gary Gerald.
Paul Tracy exchanging memories here with the defending champion, Jimmy Vassar. Paul, this has got to be like a huge load lifted after all the travails you went through in 1996. What a great way to start a new season.
Well, it really is. I'm really proud of the Marlboro team. We struggled in qualifying. We made a mistake on our setup, and that put us back. But we knew we had a race car. We did about 2,000 miles of testing here, and I'm real proud of them. They did great stops, and we just worked our way patiently up through the field. And hats off to Michael and Newman Haas and Kmart. They took the initiative to make their own chassis. They did a great job, and it's hats off. They deserve it.
You talked about patiently working your way through the field. Is that a new sign, a level of maturity from Paul Tracy? Because so many times, as you know, you've been fast. There have been a lot of wrecked cars in the wake.
Well, we're hoping so. Jimmy's laughing at me over here, but we're hoping to finish every race. We want to be consistent, finish on the, try to finish on the podium every time we can, and try to get the crown.
All right, Jack standing by with Jimmy V right now. Thanks, Paul.
All right, Jimmy, you were chuckling. What do you think? Maturity with Tracy?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a great race car driver. He's won a lot of races, and everybody on the sidelines can say what they want about drivers, but, you got to give credit where credit's due, and, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe he's already ready to go for the championship, but, all credit to my Target Chip Ganassi team. They did a fantastic job. We had a tough weekend from the get-go. We've been quick here testing all the time, but we just kept having problems all weekend. Didn't qualify as quick as we could have, and the race we got a puncture, lost a weight jacker. But our team hangs in there. Target Chip Ganassi team's a great team, and that's the character that we showed today.
When you have the strength of a championship under your belt now, too, does that give you the extra character, the extra patience, some of the intangibles that maybe this team didn't have before you came on board and won the championship for them?
Well, I'm not going to say that. I just go out and do the best job I can, and last year my team put me in a car that could finish every race, and we did that, and today we just, we did the job we had to do. We ran the car that we had and tried to bring it home in the place that we could, and we got a little break there on that yellow because we fell back on that punctured tire, but that was part of our strategy. We leaned it way out, and we were trying to pick up that window, and we did. And you got to give credit to the team, the strategy, Tom Anderson and Julian Robertson for that.
This is the first time that you've had these new cars, the new rules under race conditions. Your assessment as the defending champion?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good race. I thought it was fantastic. You could pass in traffic. It made it real exciting. And I said it before, some of the old timers, that's what they want. They want to bring more driver back into it, loosen it up, almost like a sprint car. And I think we did that a little bit, and it was a handful, but that's what they pay us for, to hold on to these things and bring them home. And I think Ralph Sanchez and Cart did the right thing in trying to slow us down in the corners, and good job.
Bob, a lot of questions at the top of the show, but at least Chapter 1 has been written, and we've got some initial answers.
No question about it, Jack, and it's going to be great fun to watch the rest of them. From high overhead, Goodyear Blimp Stars and Stripes. Our thanks to Captain Esch and the crew for many spectacular shots in today's telecast. Great to have you guys along. We'll be back with more from Homestead. Remember, basketball coming up after the conclusion of our broadcast. The Payne Weber College basketball headliners, Duke and North Carolina. We'll be back after a word from our ABC stations. Get down to Gary Gerald in the pit lane.
Scott Pruitt, you end up 4th for the 2nd straight year at this racetrack. I know you're disappointed because that yellow flag cost you a bunch. It looked like you really had things put together.
Well, actually, it was 5th, but no.
So what's the position among friends?
Well, 4th's better. No, we got held up with that caution going, getting put a lap down. I still don't understand what happened, and I'm gonna get with the officials after the race and see. But we're pleased. We've had a lot to learn with Reynard. Firestone did a great job with the tires, and we're pleased we gave Brahma a good show. They've had some kind of downtime, and we're gonna see what happens in Australia. But I'm certainly happy with the engine. Being here last year, being about 6 miles an hour slow in a straight, being right on board this time. We're looking forward to the season.
There was a lot of concern among most teams about the new aerodynamic package, the loss of downforce, the high winds all this weekend, and the traffic. How did you find all of those conditions?
A bit treacherous at times. I mean, it was, a few times it got close, but we kept at it all day long. We kept with the car, kept making it a little bit better. We knew this was going to be a difficult set of circumstances. Ralph's been working real hard to make the track better and better every year. And coming back next year it's going to be a true oval, and I think everybody's looking forward to that.
All right. Congratulations, Scott. We'll go to Jackaroo.
Gary, I don't think we'll ever get the smile off of Tony Bettenhausen's face because of the performance of this young man, Patrick Carpentier. 9th place, first time out. Your impressions of PPG kart racing?
I'm very happy. I was afraid I was not going to last the whole race because it's so hard physically, but the last 2 months I trained very hard. Tony taught me well, and I was quite relaxed in the car. The car was really good. We had a small push, which was good. We needed it here. We didn't want the car to go oversteer, but thanks to Almax and Bettenhausen, they did a wonderful job. I did a small mistake in the pit lane and stalled the car. We lost the lap, but we're still in top 10 and we got some points, so I'm happy.
If you were asked to name one thing that you learned that you didn't know before you sat in the cockpit today, what would it be?
The change, how much a car changed within a race, and when you follow someone, it's extremely hard to pass because the turbulence behind someone, that's the main thing I learned.
Bob, he's happy, Bettenhausen's happy, Alumex is happy. You'd think they'd been to victory lane even with a 9th place finish.
You bet, Jack. We have plenty more to tell you about here from Homestead. Here's a look at the point standings. By virtue of his victory, Michael Andretti picks up 20 points for the win and 1 for leading the most laps. He is the points leader as of this moment. Stay with us. And we'll be back with final thoughts from here at Homestead, Florida in just a moment. Back at Homestead, the first of 17 races on the PPG Kart World Series for 1997 is now in the books. Danny Sullivan, we know that the Ganassi team is for real. We know that Penske will be tough, but 3 different chassis and 3 different engines in the top 3 positions. This one's going to be a jump ball.
It is, but the difficult part for the rest of the field is only one team has a Swift and only one team has a Penske. So if those are the makes, a lot of people got problems.
It's going to take some races before we figure it all out. Don't forget, coming up next year on ABC Sports, great college basketball action. The Payne Weber College basketball, most of you will see Duke against North Carolina. Otherwhere, Kansas will meet Nebraska, and Washington will take on Arizona. The next stop on the PPG Kart World Series takes us down under to Indy Carnival, Australia. We'll be coming your way April 6th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. See you then. I'm Bob Varsha for Danny, Jack, and Gary. So long from Homestead.